Next, 3 terrifying true tales are from people who found themselves all alone in the dark. In our first story, we meet the author. I was hiking with 2 other people up to around 7,000 feet. We were about 2 miles from the car and we stopped for the night. Around 9 p.m., my headlamp died. And even though it was charged, it just turned off while I was trying to fix the strap. My friends had headlamps too, but theirs were rechargeable and they needed to be plugged in at that very moment. I told them not to wait for me and to go ahead without me. So I started walking back down the trail by myself, with no light, no cell service, and total darkness. I could hear the crunching of my own footsteps and the wind blowing through the trees. After what felt like hours, I heard a noise and I froze. It was something heavy and slow-moving, crashing through the underbrush. My mind started racing. What if it was a bear? I've seen videos of black bears running after their prey, catching up to them in seconds. I started running. And when I finally saw a light in the distance, I ran towards it as fast as I could. It felt like a small eternity before I reached my car. I didn't make a sound the whole way home. I was so scared. Once I got in my car and closed the doors, I let out a giant scream. To this day, I still have no idea what that noise was in the forest. That really freaked me out. I am never going hiking ever again. From our next storyteller. A few years ago, my mum took me to visit an island off the coast of South Carolina, Spool. The locals call it a barrier island because it acts as a barrier between the mainland and the ocean. There is one road that runs the entire length of the island. The beach on the ocean side of the island is wild, meaning there are no buildings or anything man-made on it for miles and miles. You can only access it via a long staircase carved into the side of the sand dunes. My mum and I parked our car at the top of the stairs and headed down to the beach. As we got to the bottom, we noticed that the stairs had been freshly cut and the sand was still piled up against them. No footprints anywhere. Where did they come from? It was really creepy. My mum and I walked along the beach for a little while, and then we decided to head home. As we started walking back up the stairs, I looked over my shoulder to see the endless stretch of wild beach, and I could unhelp but get a bad feeling about it. So we hurried up and got to the top of the stairs, where our car was parked, and drove home. In our third story, we meet our author once again. I work for a large utility company, and last summer I had to drive up into the mountains to work on a power line outage. The roads were really winding and narrow, and after a while I realized that I had lost cell phone signal a long time ago. I kept driving until I came across a driveway with a house at the end of it. I stopped my truck and I went up to the house and knocked on the door. The woman who opened the door looked at me and asked what I wanted, and I explained my situation. I told her that I had to get to the end of the road and I asked if she knew how to get there. She told me that I would have to drive back down the mountain and then take another road to get there. But that road wasn't very good and it would be very dangerous to drive at night. She suggested that I stay at her house for the night and that I could leave early in the morning when it was safer to drive. I thanked her for her hospitality, but I told her that I really needed to get to the end of the road. So I got in my truck and I continued on my way. And as soon as I passed her house, I lost all of my cell phone signal. It was pitch black outside. There was not a single streetlight or house light to be seen. And the road was narrow and winding. Every bend in the road looked exactly the same. I started to get really scared. I began to think that maybe I should have taken the lady up on her offer and stayed at her house. I ended up finding the end of the road, and I was able to get my customer back online. When I returned to the main road, it was like a scene from a horror movie. Thick fog had rolled in and covered everything. I could barely see the road in front of me. It was scary, but I was relieved to know that I would be out of that nightmare soon. Then, suddenly, a pair of headlights appeared behind me. I pulled off to the side of the road to let the car pass, but they didn't. They just kept coming closer and closer. I was terrified. Was this some kind of sick game that they were playing? Eventually, the car went past me and disappeared into the fog. This happened about 4 or 5 times. Thought, I would pull off to the side of the road, I would watch the car approach me, and then they would drive right by me without stopping. Then, eventually they stopped. I called out into the fog and asked who was there, but no one answered. I waited a minute, And then I decided to go back to my truck and drive home. I got in my truck and started to drive away. But after a few minutes, I realized that I wasn't alone. There was another set of headlights following me. I started driving faster, but they started driving faster too. I looked in my rearview mirror and I saw a pair of angry eyes staring directly at me. I slammed on the brakes and turned on my emergency flashes. The car behind me also stopped and turned on their flashes. I got out of my truck and I started walking towards the car. Skulls. I was going to knock on the window and ask what their problem was. But when I got close enough to the car to see who was inside, I ran back to my truck as fast as I could. The car door opened and a man in a sheriff's uniform stepped out. He started walking towards me and I locked myself inside my truck and I started honking the horn. The man kept walking and he eventually reached my truck and started knocking on the window. I rolled down the window and I asked him what his problem was. He explained that there had been an accident up the road and he was looking for anyone who had been involved in it. I told him that I hadn't seen anything and I asked him why he was following me. He apologized and said that he thought that I might have been involved in the accident. He said that he was sorry for startling me and he went back to his cruiser. I watched him get in his car and drive away. I sat there for a moment trying to calm down. Then I got in my truck and I drove home. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed these terrifying tales, please hit the like button. And if you want to hear more stories like these, stay tuned. Also, be sure to check out our new channel.